take up the subject of Kāmāsikāṣṭakam. Namaste.
Thank you so much, Shripatiji. Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Parama Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Sarva Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaskaram, everyone. ஆடி ஆடி அகம் கரைந்து இசை பாடி பாடி கண்ணீர் மல்கி எங்கும் நாடி நாடி நரசிங்கா வென்று வாடி வாடும் இவ்வாணுதலே. Dancing and dancing, her heart dissolves. Singing and singing, tears well up. Seeking and seeking everywhere, saying, "Oh, Narasimha." She pines away. This girl with a bright forehead pines away. Thus says Namarva in the voice of a mother of a girl obsessively in love with Narasimha. Today is the birthday, not just of this god, but also of his devotee, for the birthdays of both Narasimha and Namarva are being celebrated today, just as I talk now. And I feel very blessed and privileged to speak on Narasimha Swami today. And I thank Swamiji for giving me this wonderful opportunity. And I really am very happy to see you all here. So, what can we say, what can I say about the wonderful line from Kāmāsikā? Let me begin a bit talking about Narasimha among the Sri Vaishnavas, because the perspective would be from the Sri Vaishnava perspective today. So Narasimha is actually a favorite deity among the Sri Vaishnavas. Many of them, including Acharyas, Acharya Purushas, GS Swamis, have him as their Aradhana Devata at home, but also in mathas. And the most famous example, for example, is probably the Ahobila Matham. Let me start sharing the PowerPoint I made for you. I hope you can see the PowerPoint. Yeah?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So this, so the Ahobila Matham, for example, the main deity of worship is Lakshmi Narasimha Swami, who's known as Malulan also. And as you probably know, Ahobilam itself is a Nava Narasimha Kshetram, the place also where Narasimha is believed to have appeared, and where the devotees can actually climb here, all the way up, an arduous forest hill path to reach the pillar, Ugrastambam as it is known, the pillar from which Narasimha is said to have appeared from. Or shall we say, where pilgrims, devotees, go to visit what Vedanta Desikan calls Brahma's Pitamahi, Brahma's grandmother. Brahma's grandmother, huh? Well, that's because the pillar kept Narasimha in its womb. So the pillar became Narasimha's mother. So Brahma being Narasimha Narayana's son, the pillar became Brahma's grandmother. So you can still today go and visit Brahma's grandmother in Ahobilam in Andhra Pradesh. And it's probably one of the very few occasions where an achetana, meaning an insentient entity, gave birth not just to any Chetana, ascension being, but the supreme Chetana, the Parama Chetana, God himself. But what's special about Narasimha? Well, the Sri Vaishnava Acharyas mentioned the Sitakshira Nyayam. Now, what is this? It's the analogy of the sugar and the milk. Now, imagine if you, for example, you know about sugar, you know about milk, you enjoy eating sugar, you enjoy eating milk separately. And then somebody turns up and tells you, hey, why don't you mix the sugar and the milk? You taste it, you find it so wonderful that you decide that you won't ever go back to tasting these two separately. Similarly, with Narasimha, people worship God in the form of a human being and then God in the form of an animal. But when they see and worship Narasimha, they won't go back. That's the Sitakshira Nyaya. So there is something very special about this very powerful, very beautiful God that Narasimha is. So today we shall enjoy this sweetened milk, this man lion, from the perspective of, and also thanks to using the words of none other than the one and only Vedanta Desikan, who himself is known as the Kavitarkika Simham. He's the lion among poets and logicians. So another lion here. And this, I think, will be quite an experience in itself. So how do I plan to proceed? So that I don't lose you in the way, I shall first briefly introduce you to Swami Desikan, and then the place, meaning Kāmāsikā. What is Kāmāsikā? It's actually a place, Tiruvelukai, as it is known. I'll tell you more about it in a minute. And then introduce Kāmāsikashṭakam before I proceed to read every single verse with you and explain things to you. Vedanta Desikan was, I will tell you in a minute, was absolutely wonderful. He is a wonderful writer, wonderful theologian, wonderful devotee, but he's not always very easy to understand, but I'll try my best today. So before I begin, I think I must tell you that I owe a lot of the knowledge that I have of the interpretations that I'm going to give you here to the scholars of the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, past and present, the Purvacharyas, but also scholars like Sri Rama Desikachar, Velukudi Krishnan Swami, and Dushyant Sridhar Swami, etc. So if you think there are good things about my talk today, it's definitely thanks to them. If you find faults, that's definitely because of me. Now let's begin with the context. Vedanta Desikan, Swami Desikan does not need any introduction. Everybody knows Swami Desikan, but just in case you didn't, here are a few words of introduction. Now, he lived around the 14th century, and he's one of the most important Sri Vaishnava acharyas. He was quite a genius, actually. He has composed over 100 works in Sanskrit, in Tamil, in Manipravalam, in Prakrit, and all sorts of works, theological treatises, commentaries. He's even composed a play, stotras. We're going to focus on one of those stotras. He's composed 28 of them, and you've probably heard of his more popular stotras like his Sri Stuti, Goda Stuti, Bhu Stuti, the Hayagriva Stotram. I'm sure you know it. Jnananandamayam Devam Nirmala Spatika Kritim. That one is very famous. Sudarshanashtakam, Garuda Dandakam, etc. Many, many, many. Now, Kāmāsikāṣṭakam is the only stotra that in which Swami Desikan links an avatara, in this case, Narasimha Swami, to a specific place, meaning, in this case, a Divya Desham. So that's one of the things that makes this poem special. Now, what sort of place is this? Let me tell you a bit about the place, Kāmāsikā. Now, Kāmāsikā is also known as Tiruvelukai, in case you wish to go there, in case you haven't been there. It's half a mile away from Tupul, which is the birthplace of Swami Desikan, in the outskirts of Kanchipuram. And Kāmāsikā Narasimhan is the main deity there. He's also known as Aragiya Singer, but also as Mukunda Nayakan. Now, this place has been praised by two Arvas. Peyarva first, already in the 6th century, so it's a very ancient shrine, and also by Tirumangayarvar. And that's why it's a Divya Desham. As you know, a Divya Desham is, a place is considered a Divya Desham when it's sung by an Arva. And the Sthala Purana of this place says that Narasimha, after killing the demon Hiranyakashipu, came to Velukai and decided to stay here after being pleased with its very beautiful surroundings, which explains its name, Kāmāsikā. Because Kāmāsikā means Kama, desire, and Asika, which means sitting. So Narasimha sits there out of desire. That's one way of taking it, Asai Pattam, out of desire, or you can take it to mean out of his free will, Ishtam Pole. You know, he's free in that place. Or you can also say he sat with desire for whom? For Lakshmi. Now, Kāmāsikā is actually a translation of the Tamil name Velirukkai. Now, you see here Velukai, I'll come to that in a minute. Vel in Tamil means desire, and Irukkai means seat, sitting, etc. And this Velirukkai progressively became transformed into Velukai in the spoken language. So, it's not the most famous Narasimha Kshetram, as we know. In Andhra Pradesh, for example, Ahobilam is much more famous, so is Simhachalam, etc. In Tamil Nadu, you also have Solingur and Namakkal. So this kshetra is a bit neglected, except by those who go on a Divya Desha Yatra. In this Kāmāsikā temple, we have a Yoga Narasimha. You can see a photo of it on this slide. And the Mula Murti actually sits in the middle of the temple tank. And the Utsava Murti, whom you can see here, can be worshipped under the Kanaka Vimanam. And he sits in the Paryanka Bandha. That's the posture he's sitting in, that people sit. It's a yogic posture for performing dhyana. I'll come back to this later on because Swami Deśikan describes it quite a few times. And the Narasimha here, but not just here, in many other places, has 3 eyes, the third eye being on the forehead. I'll also come back to that. Now, before we move on and read the stotra, let me say a few words on this Kāmāsikāṣṭakam. Now, this Ashtakam, as its name suggests, has 8 verses, but also one final verse, which is a Phalashruti verse, in which Swami Deśikan also signs off. He gives his name in there. You will see very soon. It's dedicated, as I said, it's in Sanskrit, but it's dedicated to Kāmāsikā Narasimha. And the verses are very beautiful, very impressive, but probably a little challenging, as all writing by Swami Deśikan is, I think. And actually, for these 9 shlokas, he has chosen 6 different meters in Sanskrit to celebrate the different movements of Narasimha Swami. I won't get into that. It might get a bit too complicated, but I've given this to you so that you know what he's up to. I think the verses really appeal to our senses, as we shall see, because Swami Deśikan describes vividly Narasimha Swami as well as his actions. Let's move to the first verse then. Shrutinam uttaram bhagam vegavatyaśca dakshinam kāmādadhivasanjīyāt kaśchidadbhuta kesari. In the latter portion of the Vedas and south to the Vegavati river dwells out of its own volition an indescribable, wonderful lion. May he be victorious. So this is a Mangalashasanam to Narasimha. Mangalashasanam means he sort of is blessing him. Jiyad, may he be victorious. So what Swami Deśikan also does is initially he sets the scene. He defines the location. So where is this Narasimha that he praises? Is it the Avatara Murti? No. Shrutinam uttaram bhagam. He's somebody who is in a very concrete place, more or less concrete, not initially. Shrutinam uttaram bhagam. He is in the latter portion of the Vedas. Now, what does it mean, latter portion of the Vedas? It means in the end, meaning in the Vedantas. And Vedanta is a word to mean Upanishads. So, Narasimha Swami resides in the Upanishads. There is a shlesha here, meaning there's a double meaning with uttaram and dakshinam. As you know, uttaram means latter, but also means north, like in Uttar Pradesh. And dakshinam, like Dakshin Bharat, it means south, but it also means right. So he's playing with words. So the first place he lives in is in the Upanishads. And the second, a more concrete place where he lives is Vegavatyāśca dakshinam. So he lives to the south of the Vegavati river. Now this river flows near Kanchipuram. It's mentioned in the different Vaishnava Kanchi Mahatmyams. The river is an incarnation of Saraswati, who got angry with her husband, Brahma, as usual. And while he was performing a yajna, she got so upset that she decided to flow very fast to ruin the yajna. So Brahma prays to Narayana, and then Narayana just lies across. So she's very embarrassed to go past this man who's lying. So she swerves and go the other side. So Brahma's yajna is saved. It's not precisely for this Thala Purana. There are many different Divya Deshams in and around Kanchipuram. It's one of the Sthala Puranas. Anyway, to just come back to Vegavati, this is the Sthala Purana linked with Vegavati. So Narasimha lives in the Upanishads in general, but also on the southern banks of the river Vegavati. Now, why does he live there? Because he wanted to. Kāmādadhivasan. He lived there out of his desire. He chose the place. There's also another very nice interpretation of Shrutinam uttaram bhagam. So what does this mean? I've already said it's Vedanta. So he lives in Vedanta. Vedanta means Upanishad. Well, Vedanta can also mean something else. What does it mean? It could be a reference to Vedanta Desikan simply. So this would mean that Narasimha Swami lives in Vedanta Desikan Swami. That's another interpretation. Okay, so as I have pointed out, this is a place where Narasimha Swami lives and sits without any constraints. As you know, his avatara called in for many constraints. You know, he had to be half a man, half an animal. He had to kill Hiranyakashipu neither inside nor outside, neither during the day nor during the night, neither on the ground nor in the sky, etc., etc. But here, at last, he gets to sit as he wishes, free from restrictions. There is also another tradition, another traditional interpretation. So he sits there, they say, out of desire in the midst of many women. Now, where do you see women here in this verse? It is there. Swami Desikan uses Shruti Nam and then Vegavati. Shruti Nam is feminine plural and Vegavati is feminine singular. So as you can see on the picture here, even in Paramapadam, Narayana sits with Shri on one side and all the other ladies on the other side. So some people, some scholars believe that Narasimha Swami actually, sits on the one hand, you have Vegavati, and on the other hand, you have the Shrutis, all the Vedic ladies, Vedas represented as women. That's one of the interpretations. Now, what sort of lion are we talking of? Because we are speaking of this lion, he hasn't yet been introduced in this verse. Kaschid Adbhuta Kesari. Kaschid. Kaschid means indescribable, because you can't really describe him. And yet, what does Swami Deshikan says? Adbhuta means he's wonderful. Okay, he's wonderful, he's indescribable. Why would he be that? We can say many different things. He's wonderful because he's so handsome, wonderful because he did so many different things, but also indescribable because he's not easy to understand, to grasp, not for everyone at least. He mixed things that usually cannot be mixed. For example, he mixed Naratva, being human, and Simhatva, being lion. And then he came as a lion, but still managed to be very handsome. How is that possible? And then he mixed Paratva, meaning being the supreme being, but also he mixed it with Saulabhya. He's very accessible. He came because a child pointed at a pillar. He also mixed anger with grace. How is that possible? We'll see that a bit later. So this was the first verse. Now let's move to the next verse where we have a bit more information about this man lion. Tapanendvagninayana tapanapachinotunaha tapaniya rahasyanam sarah Kāmāsikā harihi. So may he, whose eyes are the sun, the moon, the fire, Hari from Kāmāsikā, the essence of the Tapaniya Upanishad and the Rahasyam, destroy our three heats. Now, Tapanendu Agni Nayanaha. I've already mentioned that he has three eyes, the sun, the moon, and the fire here. What do they do? Tapanapachinotunaha. It seems that each of the three eyes tackle each of the three tapas that all of us have. Tapas, as you know, means heat, affliction, etc., that all of us suffer. Now, what are these tapas? So there are three categories: Adhyatmika, Adhibhautika, and Adhidaivika. So Adhyatmika are all the problems, afflictions that we have that are bodily and psychological, back pain, depression, etc. That's Adhyatmika, Tapa. And then the next is afflictions caused by other beings, including animals, birds, other humans. I presume other viruses as well, in which case we can put Corona to this list. And then you have Adhidaivika, caused by divine beings, Graha, etc. So Narasimha has three eyes. Each of them tackle one of these tapas and destroys them. And then Swami Desikan, as you see, mentions the Tapaniya Upanishad and the Rahasyam. Now, what is that? Let's have a look. The Tapaniya Upanishad is actually what is known as the Narasimha Tapaniya Upanishad. It's a minor Upanishad, but it seems that Shankara Bhagavatpada has written a commentary on it. It's not very well known, not widely known, but it is a very important one. It's an ancient one, 6th, 7th centuries at least. And Rahasyam, it seems, is traditionally interpreted as being a reference to the Mantra Raja Padastotram, which is extremely popular. So I think it's been made very popular by Kumudam Jyotidhar, known as Ayama Swami, some 10-15 years ago. It's apparently incorporated in the Ishvara Samhita. Now, Mantra Raja Padastotram itself, as you know, is actually an expansion upon this Mantra Raja. This is a shloka. Normally, you're not supposed to recite it like this. You need to be initiated. Now, this shloka is the first shloka that you will find in the Tāpaniya Upanishad. As you need to be initiated, what they did was they say it's Shiva, apparently, incorporated every single name of Narasimha here, found here. There is Ugram, there is Viram, etc. in different shlokas, and they made the Mantra Raja Padastotram, which I think, as I said, it's popular enough. It begins with Vritthot Pulla Vishalaksham Vipakshakshaya Dikshitam. You know that one. So that's a reference to. So the Swami Desikan says that Narasimha, especially Kāmāsikā Harihi, Narasimha as he is found in Kāmāsikā, is actually the essence that you find in these texts. Okay, now let's move to the next verse. So how does he look other than saying that he sits in this place and has 3 eyes? That's the third verse. Akantham adipurusham kanthiravam upari kunthitaratim vegopakantha sangat vimukta vaikuntha bahumatim upase. I worship him who's the primeval Lord up to the throat and a lion above, him who mutilates the enemies, him who relinquished the high esteem that he gets in Vaikuntha out of attachment for the proximity with the Vegavati. So let's begin with how this Narasimha looks. Akantham Adipurusham. So up to the throat, Akantham, he's not even Nara. He is not even a man. He's the Adi Purusha. He's not a Purusha. He's the Adi Purusha. He's the primeval God up to the throat. He's the Purushottama, not a Purusha. And then what you see is Kanthiravam Upari. He's a lion above the throat. Now, have you ever wondered why he chose to have a lion face? Why not some other animals? Obviously, he's already picked some. Now, there are a few traditional theories as to why he chose a lion face. Some people think that he chose that lion face because in his heart, Prahlada had visualized God like that. And because Narayana is the Antaryami, he knew what Prahlada was visualizing, the child was visualizing. So he came in that very form with a Simhamukha and then the body of a Nara. But there is also another interpretation, another theory, that Narasimha Swami left the decision of choosing a face till the very last minute. And at some point, there is this conversation going on between Hiranyakashipu and Prahlada. And then he's asking, where is your God? He says he's everywhere. What do you mean everywhere? Tell me where he is. Prahlada says he's there, he's in your mouth, he's in everywhere. And then at some point, Hiranyakashipu gets really angry. He says, Prahlada, I'm going to tear you up like a lion tears up an elephant, and I'm going to wear your intestines, and I'm going to drink your blood. Now, Kamban really described this very nicely. Now, just imagine Prahlada was a child, and his own child, and he speaks these gruesome words, and he sends him these threats. And then Bhagavan hears this, and he says, fine, I'll do what he said he would do to his child, but I'll do that to him. Exactly what he said to him, I'll do that. And that's exactly why he turned up as Narasimha and, acted, fulfilled Hiranyakashipu's words, but turning it against him, turning the tables against him. That's exactly what is expressed by Swami Desikan when he says, Kunthitaratim, him who mutilates the enemies. We all know what Narasimha Swami did to Hiranyakashipu. We'll see a bit more later on. There's a gruesome description of how he molds Hiranyakashipu. Now, just prasangata, I'm telling you this. The traditions say that Narasimha Swami, once he's decided that he was going to be Narasimha, he entered every single pillar in the hall in Hiranyakashipu's palace so that he could be ready to pounce on him as soon as he breaks one. So what did he do till then? You know, he was listening to this conversation. Well, apparently he was sharpening his nails. That's one story. And the other story is that Hiranyakashipu broke that pillar confidently, not just because he didn't believe in the existence of God, or at least the supreme God as Prahlada was seeing him, perceiving him, but rather because he was very sure there was nothing in those pillars, because he himself made those pillars with his own hands. So he was very, very sure that nobody had built a pillar with a, you know, with whatever inside. And he even didn't let anybody else break the pillar because he wanted to be sure that nobody would tamper with it before he himself gets there. That's just prasangat. I've told you the story. So he goes, he shows a pillar, he breaks it, and then he invites death. Now, to get back to this Narahari who's sitting in Kāmāsikā, Swami Deśikan mentions another detail, very interesting. So that's the second line. I'll begin by the last pada before I move on to the third. Vimukta Vaikuntha Bahuvate. So Narayana is greatly, supremely respected in Vaikuntha by the Nityasuris, but also by the liberated Atmans, etc. Why would he want to come to this earth where people say this and that about him, who insult him, who belittle him, who think he doesn't exist, God knows what? Swami Desikan gives an explanation. That's the third pada, Vegopakantha Sangata, out of attachment for the proximity with the Vegavati river. Now, this shows the greatness of the place, the beauty of its surroundings. Apparently, it's even more attractive than Vaikuntha. Of course, this is very standard description. When you describe a place, you compare it with something that is the very standard, the yardstick, in this case, Vaikuntha, and you say, more than Vaikuntha, this place is really good. Probably you know the words from Venkatesha Mangalam when they say Vaikuntha Viraktaya Swami Pushkarini Tate. So they also say there that he left Vaikuntha and Venkatesha came on the banks of the Swami Pushkarini. So very similar here. Now, there is another reason why the Sri Vaishnava Acharyas say he left there and he came here. It's because he's so handsome. This Lord is so handsome that his beauty would have been like a lamp lit in daylight if he's in Vaikuntha. Pahal vilakku pattirukum. Because in Vaikuntha, everybody is handsome. Because they get sayujya, they look very Vesarupya, sayujya, etc. Everybody looks handsome. So what's the point of looking to be so very good looking there? Better come here so that he could be like a lamp lit in darkness. That's precisely why he came to this world. And that's one of the interpretations. Okay, let's move on. Is there anything more special to Narasimha Swami? Why should we worship him? Let's see. Bandhum akhilasya jantoh bandhura paryanka bandharamaniyam vishama vilochanamide vegavati pulina keli narasimham. I praise the kinsman to all living beings, him who's charming due to the lovely paryanka bandha posture, him with the odd number of eyes, the man-lion who plays on the sandbank of the Vegavati. So here's my question again. Why should we worship Narasimha? Bandhum akhilasya jantoho, because he is everybody's bandhu, relative. He is the relative for the whole world. He's a natural relative to all of us. Now, Sri Vaishnavas speak of the Nirupadhika bandhu. He's a bandhu without a cause, without a reason. What does that mean? I mean, I also have friends and relatives, but they are friends and relatives only in this birth. And they are friends and relatives because of my karma and due to their karma. Once we leave this body, nobody is nobody else's bandhu except Bhagavan. That's why he's the permanent, the eternal bandhu and the natural master. You might have a doubt here. Fine, he was Prahlada's bandhu. But was he also Hiranyakashipu's bandhu? Was he also Ravana's bandhu? Yes, because the key thing is to accept the relation. You have to agree that he is your bandhu, he is your master. If you don't accept, then there's a problem. Hiranyakashipu and Ravana didn't accept that. And actually, he is also the greatest bandhu for precisely these people, more than to us, hopefully. Hopefully, I'm not as bad as Hiranyakashipu. That's why I'm saying this. Because Narasimha did a favor by killing their bodies. Because obviously, you can't kill somebody's Atma. He killed their body, so he did a favor to them. What? Why does God give us a body? So that we can live in such a way that we can get rid of our karma and progress towards moksha. It might take a birth, 2, 3. Sometimes for some people, like for the prapannas, for the surrenderers, it doesn't take that long. It just takes this birth. But unfortunately, many of us, we don't manage to get rid of karma in this birth, but actually we end up increasing its burden, its count. And in the case of Hiranyakashipu, he kept on committing terrible deeds upon terrible deeds. So in order to stop him from destroying himself, Bhagavan had to destroy his body. And that's the best thing he could have done to him. I guess otherwise he would have worsened things for himself. And also, I must mention here that the Sri Vaishnavas believe that Sitrame Arur, God's anger is his grace. Even Andal in her Tirupave says, Siri Arulade. She says, like, don't grace to be infuriated. Rather, please don't grace to be infuriated, she says. So even God's grace even is, his anger is also, is just as good as his grace, as also for Rakshasas. Okay, so let's get back to Kāmāsikā Narasimha. Swami Deśikan comes back to what he does in this place. So he says, Bandhura Paryanka Bandharamaniyam. He says he's charming due to the lovely Paryanka Bandha posture. You can see on the photo here, the Paryanka Bandha posture, which is what some people adopt, yogis adopt to do dhyana, to perform tapas. Now, why would God perform tapas? That's what usually sages and devotees do in order to obtain something from God. Well, not here, but elsewhere. In one of the commentaries, Swami Deśikan claims that Bhagavan's tapas is to protect the devotees. That's his vrata, that's his vow. I will protect my devotees. That's precisely what the whole avatara, Narasimha Avatara, is about. Now, we have already seen that his 3 eyes destroy our 3 tapas. In this verse, Swami Deśikan comes back again to the 3rd eye here. He says, Vishama Vilochanam Ide. So I praise him with the odd number of eyes. Now, Vishama means odd, unlike pair. So 1 is odd, 2 is pair, 3 is odd number. It's an odd number because he has 3 eyes, not 2, but odd, usually it means irregular. So it could also be a reference to the fact that these eyes have different attributes. Remember, it's the sun, moon, and the fire. And their activities also contradict each other. The one cools the devotee, the other burns, the other heats people up. So how can the eyes perform such contradictory activities? Can they even do that at the same time, especially? Yes, that's possible. That's possible for Bhagavan. Even Andal tells Krishna in her Tirupave, she asks him to get up saying, Tingalum Adityanum Yerundarkal. Says, open your eyes, she says, like the sun and the moon rise. So here, Narasimha looks at Prahlada and his father at the same time, but with totally different outlooks and with totally different consequences. We'll see that in detail in a few minutes. But in this verse, what else does Narasimha do here? Vegavati Pulina Keli Narasim. He plays on the sandbank of the Vegavati. So, as I said before, finally he gets to be carefree and play with no responsibilities on his shoulders. Now, his is an avatara where he did not have the time to have a childhood. He came in a jiffy and left in a jiffy. So here, finally, he gets to relax a bit on the sands of this river in a beautiful place. and in order to catch up with what he actually missed earlier on. Okay, let's move to the next verse, which is in the Shardula Vikreditamicha. Let me try and get this singing right. I'm not too sure. Swasthaneshu marudganan niyamayan swadhina sarvendriya paryanka dharana prakatita pratyang mukhavasthitihi prayena pranipedusham prabhuraso yogam nijam shikshayan kamanatanutada shesha jagatam Kāmāsikā kesari. May the lion from Kāmāsikā, he who, regulating the groups of bodily winds in their places, has all the organs under his control, he whose firm position facing westwards manifests his stable meditation in Paryanka posture, the master who, thus mainly teaching meditation on himself to those who have submitted to him, fulfill the desires of all the worlds. Excuse me. So this verse mentions a few of the steps of Ashtanga Yoga. As you probably know, there are 8 steps in Ashtanga Yoga, as the name suggests. I'm not going to get into details, but there's Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. And this verse actually mentions Pranayama, but also Asana, because it mentions the posture that he's sitting in. And it mentions it mentions also dharana, which is the step right before dhyana. So here Swami Desikan shows how well conversant he is with the Ashtanga Yoga. Not very surprising, but just saying. This verse is a little complicated because it incorporates a shlesha, meaning the words, you can read it in 2 different ways. It has double meanings, not in the modern sense, but double meanings in the good sense. I'll try to explain. If you don't understand, that's perfectly okay. So the first reading you have to keep in mind is a description of Narasimha killing Hiranyakashipu and then settling in Kāmāsikā. And the second reading gives simply a description of Kāmāsikā Narasimha and his yogic posture. Now let's have a look at this now. So you have this Svasthaneshu Marudganan Niyamayan. So he establishing, regulating the groups of Marut. Now Marut this whole bit can be, as I said, read in 2 different ways. So the first way, you can take Marut to mean all the Devas. So it's a word that means Devas in general. So Narasimha establishes them. Why does he need to establish them? Because they all ran away because of Hiranyakashipu. By killing Hiranyakashipu, he just brings them back and establishes them in their roles, Vayu, Varuna, etc., so that they can start assuring their duties again. Now the second reading, remember, Marut, we can take it to mean specifically winds. So here he speaks of regulating the groups of Maruts. Now here it's a reference of to the prana vayus, the 5 types of vayus, prana, apana, etc., which need to be kept in place in pranayama, which is a prerequisite to meditate. If you can't do that, you can't really meditate. You have to have control over these 5 vayus. So these are the 2 ways of reading for this part of the verse. And then comes the next bit. Svadhina sarvendriyaha. So sarva indriyaha, all the indriyas. It's a reference to both karmendriyas and jnanendriyas. So in the first reading, it means he keeps the indriyas of Prahlada under his control. The extension of all the devotees, he keeps them under control. Remember, like if you're totally inside thinking of Narasimha, as Prahlada was totally focused on Narasimha, his indriyas were all onto Narasimha. So Prahlada's indriyas were under the control of Narasimha. In the second reading, we know that Narasimha is meditating, he's doing pranayama, and in this case, it simply means that he controls his own indriyas as a preliminary towards doing dhyana. And then some more shleshas, and then I'll leave you in peace for the shleshas. Pratyang mukha vasthitihi. So facing Pratyak. Pratyak has different meanings. The first meaning is facing west. Now this Kāmāsikā temple, in this temple, Narasimha faces west. So it simply can be an allusion to that. But Pratyak also means inside. So Narasimha sitting in meditation, like the yogi that he is, controls his breath, sits in meditation by turning his focus inside. That's also what we have to do if we sit in meditation. So you have these two readings. And then comes the Prayena Pranipedusham. So this would be, the first reading would be, this is a reference to protecting Prahlada. So he came to protect Prahlada. The second reading is he's sitting in Kāmāsikā, meditating in order to protect any devotee that comes to him. And then finally, we have Yogam Nijam Shikshayan. The first reading is that he teaches. What does he teach? He teaches his yoga, but not the yoga that we understand, but yoga here means nature. He teaches his nature to people. And what is his nature? It's Ashrita Rakshanam. It is protecting anybody who seeks surrender in him. And the second meaning is very direct. It means he teaches how to do yoga, meaning in this sense meditation, upon him. So you have these two possible readings, possible shleshas. Sorry if I've troubled you so much with these complicated shleshas, but I have to say it. So it's okay if it's not very clear. I hope it wasn't too confusing. Now, after describing Narasimha's tapas in this way, Swami Deśika makes a wish for us all. He says, Kaman atanutad ashesha jagatam. So may he fulfill the desires of all the worlds. So for all of us who live in all these worlds. What are all these desires? Aren't we not supposed to have desires? We could. Technically, any desire that does not obstruct our path to moksha, which is our highest goal, is fine. Or even better, anything that will help us serve God is a very good desire to have. Like you could ask God for jnana, bhakti, vairagyam, etc. So, Vedanta Desikan here makes a wish for us all, not so that we have money, etc., but rather we have jnana, bhakti, vairagyam, kaikarya, etc. Now, we are going to get into some action here, because what follows in the next verse is in total contrast with this very calm, meditative state, this very quiet control of Narasimha, because we're going to erupt into the next verse in which we're going to meet this ferocious Narasimha who has absolutely no control over his senses anymore. So Swami Deśikan gives us a glimpse of both visions of Narasimha, and it's really up to us which Narasimha we want to see, really. Okay, next verse then, verse 6. Because Varanakaswarup Kshatahiranya Vakshasthali Nirargala Vinirgala Drudhira Sindhu Sandhyayitaha Avantu Madanasika Manuja Panchavakrasya Aham Prathamika Mitha Prakatita Havavahavaha. May the arms of the man lion from Kāmāsikā, which turned twilight-like from the ocean of blood streaming unrestrained from the chest of Hiranya, torn apart by the thunderbolt of expanded nails, and which display mutual bellicosity, saying, me first, protect me. So this Nirargala Vinirgala Drudhira Sindhu Sandhyayitaha is Swami Deśikan describing Narasimha's hands. They have turned red. They have turned red like twilight. Why? Because of the ocean of blood that streams unrestrained, uninterrupted. We'll see from where in a minute. We all know, but still. So we have here a very visual description. We have a splash of colors, especially of red. We have twilight. We have the ocean of blood. Just imagine this gruesome description. The acharyas like to say that Hiranyakashipu had more blood in his chest than the avarana jalam, meaning the water that surrounds, that covers the cosmic egg. It is even said that when this ocean of blood flowed, Narasimha saw his own reflection on that blood, and he got even more angry because he thought there was another lion challenging him there. And the acharyas wonder, what's happened to his omniscience? He's supposed to know everything. What's happened to that? Well, everything, meaning his omniscience, his control over the senses, his quiet, everything goes when it comes to his devotees. Somebody tortures, troubles his devotees, he forgets everything. He's not himself anymore. Rama, for example, had all his emotions under perfect control. All his emotions were at his beck and call. He would say, anger, come here. So anger would come. He would say, anger, go away. So anger would go. But even Rama lost control on one occasion. Let's have a look at that. Just like Narasimha here got angry with Hiranyakashipu for troubling Prahlada, Rama, who's also known as Raghava Simha, got angry with Ravana when Ravana started shooting arrows on Hanuman. Similarly, Krishna, usually he's smiling, he's playful, he's like, that's okay, it's all right. He got really, really angry, if you remember the Mahabharata, when Bhishma started sending arrows on Arjuna, his devotee. Also, Sri Ranganatha, who's known as Rangendra Simha, got angry when Tirupanarva was slighted. He said, till you bring him here, I won't be worshipped. So all these Simhas that you see here, Narasimha, Raghava Simha, Yadava Simha, Rangendra Simha, they all lose their control when their devotees are upset or hurt or insulted. Do we need even anything more in Bhagavan? No, we don't. Now, to get back to this ocean of blood, where from and why does so much blood flow? Because Varanakasvarukshata Hiranya Vakshasthali, from the chest of Hiranya, torn apart by the thunderbolt of expanded nails. So Narasimha's nails were like thunderbolt, Vajrayudha. The Sri Vaishnavas believe that Narayana's discus, Sudarshana, transformed himself into Narasimha's nails, as he always does when Narayana needs a weapon. Because Sudarshana is Narayana's Sankalpa Shakti, he is his willpower. For example, he entered the arrows of Rama whenever he had to use that to control his enemies. They even say that he entered the Darbha grass that Vamana used to pierce through Shukracharya's eyes during Vamanavatara. Now, in this avatara, because Narasimha could not take a proper weapon, he turned oops, thank you. That hurt. Okay, so that was Narasimha just waking me up, I guess. Where was I? Can't even remember. Yeah, well, Sudarshana turned himself into the nails, becoming the weapon of Narasimha. Because as I said, Sudarshana is the Sankalpa Shakti of Narayana. There are also a few other reasons why the Acharyas thought that Narasimha split open the chest, the upper part of Hiranyakashipu. One reason they give is that Narasimha wanted to go all the way to Hiranyakashipu's heart to check whether his enmity, his anger, his hatred towards him came really from the heart or it just came from the tip of the tongue. Because it is said that Bhagavan is so compassionate and tolerant that he accepts praise without checking if it comes from the heart. He is very happy with empty words. But if somebody abuses him, he prefers to check if it's really intentional. If it's not intentional, if it's somebody who worships inside but just speaks abuses outside, he's like, fine, fine. So he tried to do that here. Another interpretation that they give is that Prahlada came out Hiranyakashipu's womb in a metaphorical sense. And when Narasimha disemboweled him, he wanted to check if there were any more gems like Prahlada inside. So that's one of the readings. So anyway, it's so gruesome. Should we run away and hide from this such blood-soaked, violent hands? No, says Swami Deśikan. Avantu madanasika manuja panchavaktrasyama. May the arms, the hands of the man lion from Kāmāsikā protect me. But do they even know how to protect? Of course, yes. Aham prathamika mitha prakatita hava bahavaha. Narasimha's hand, many hands, because he uses, the bahuvachanam, the plural, not the dvivachanam, not the dual form, which usually is used in Sanskrit for pairs of hands, etc. This shows that Narasimha had many arms and hands. Actually, they all fight with each other, saying, me first, not just to kill the enemies, but also to protect the devotees. Because Narasimha is capable both of anishta nivritti, which means he's very good at removing what is not desirable, in this case, destroying Hiranyakashipu, but it also to give ishta pradana, to give what is desirable, in this case, protecting Prahlada. Okay, and just like his eyes, these different hands can perform contradictory tasks at the same time, like protecting some people and then destroying the others. Now let's move to the next verse, which continues with the description of his fury, but actually halfway through, it switches to a contrasting depiction. सटापटलभीषणे सरभसाट्टहसोद्घटे स्फुरत्कृधि परिस्फुटद्भ्रुकुटिके पिवक्त्रे कृते कृपाकपटकेसरिन्दनुजडिम्ब डिम्भदत्तस्तना सरोजसदृशा व्यतिभिषज्यते व्यज्यते. Even when your face was made terrifying with the thick cover of your mane, vehement with the violent, loud laughter, filled with blazing anger, and with a quivering frown, your grace, O deceitful lion, is revealed after you healed him, with your lotus-like eye giving breast milk to the Rakshasa boy. So the fury, the ferociousness, the frightfulness of the man lion is described in the first two lines. As I said, he has this terrifying mane and he has this violent, loud laughter. So we are moving also from the visual field, we are moving to the oral field as well. And then his face has also got this blazing anger, this quivering frown. This is a frightening sight. Can anyone even approach him? The gods were afraid. Yes, because he can combine two opposite things, as we have already seen. So what does he combine? This very furious image is your grace, he says, is revealed after you healed him, with your lotus-like eye giving breast milk to the Rakshasa boy. So Narasimha's eyes, on the one hand, is blazing with the fire of anger, and the other eye is breastfeeding a Rakshasa boy. Is it even possible to combine fury with love? Yes. For example, let's imagine a lioness is inside a cave and she hears an elephant challenging outside. So on the one hand, she will roar, warning off the elephant outside, but at the same time, look kindly and feed her own cubs. Similarly, Narasimha can do the same thing. So he becomes a mother to his devotee. Basically, that's the idea, while giving terrifying death to the devotee's enemies, not his own enemies. He doesn't have enemies. So actually, Narasimha feels very sorry later on that the boy had to witness his father being butchered like this, and yet he bears devotion for him. So he gives him a boon that he won't kill anyone born in his lineage, which is why, Vamana Trivikrama spared Mahabali Chakravarti. Anyway, to get back to this, and then Swami Deshikan moves on. He says, Kapata Kesarin. He speaks of the deceitful lion. Now, why was he a deceitful lion? He tricked the Rakshasa out of his own boon. That could be a reading. Or he tricked him because it's hard to say whether he was really angry or if he imagined, like he pretended, that's one thing. Or simply, traditionally, Kapata is taken as a synonym of Maya, and Maya is not understood like in the Advaita sense, illusion, but rather as wonder. So this is a wonderful Kesari, wonderful lion. Now, I think we've come to what I think the most important verse of the Ashtakam. It's the last verse before the Palashruti. And I think it's probably the most important verse that Swami Deshikan has ever written. Tvayi rakshati rakshakaiः kimanyaiः Tvayi cha rakshati rakshakaiः kimanyaiः Iti nishchitadhihi shrayami nityam Grihare vegavati tatashrayam tvam. When protected by you, what is the use of other protectors? When not protected by you, what is the use of other protectors? With such a resolved mind, I always surrender unto you. who dwell on the banks of the Vegavati, O man lion. So this Tvai Rakshati Rakshakaihi Kimanyaihi. When protected by Bhagavan, there is no use for other protectors. We can do it much, much infinitely better than everyone else combined. In the same way, when he decides not to protect someone or to punish someone, nobody can protect that person. And there are examples that I can quote from the Itihasas and the Puranas. Here's the first example. You probably know the story of Rama and Kākāsura. Kākāsura was Indra's son who lusted after Sita and came in the form of a crow. He pecked on Sita's breast as Rama was asleep on her lap. And she starts bleeding. And when Rama wakes up, he picks up a darbha grass and then fills it, like he empowers it with the Brahmastra and then sends it after Kākāsura. Now Kākāsura runs everywhere, to Brahma, to Varuna, even to his own father Indra. His father says, "Who are you? I don't know you." He shuts the door. So basically everybody says, we can't do anything. This is, oh my God, we can't do anything against Rama's anger. So what does he do? Finally, he comes back to Rama and falls at his feet. So when Rama decides to punish, nobody can protect that person. And the only person who can protect him against probably himself is Rama himself. We'll come back to that in a minute. Another very quick example. This is from Krishnavatara. It's mentioned in the Bhagavata Purana, Banasura's story. It's a long story. I'm not getting into this. Banasura, I don't know, he had this 100 arms or 1,000. I never know because they all seem to have so many arms. He was a devotee of Shiva and had a boon from Shiva that if he's ever attacked, Shiva and his people would come and defend him. So there's a whole story about his daughter Usha falling in love with Krishna's grandson, and she actually carries him away through her friend and starts living with him, and Banasura realizes this and imprisons him, and then Krishna comes looking for his grandson, and then there's a war, and then Shiva, following his boon, comes with his people. On this, I think on this picture you can see Kartikeya here. Here's Shiva on Nandin, here's Ganesha, possibly Kali also, and then there's Brahma. So what happens is, anyway, they all have to run away because Krishna and his army, just Vaishnava Sena, just make them flee. And then Krishna chops off all Banasura's arms except two, because after all, his family, because his daughter is now married to Krishna's daughter-in-law. Again here, another example that the Sri Vaishnava Acharyas like to quote, to say that he is the only one, Bhagavan is the only one who can protect you, not just from the problems and dangers that come from elsewhere and the others, but also from his own anger. One good thing you can do when you know that God is angry, it's no prayaschitas, no whatever, just Anjali Mudra. Do this, problem solved. So here, Swami Deshikan makes a statement of unconditional surrender. He says, "Iti nishchita dhihi shrayami nityam." With such a resolved mind, I always surrender unto you. And unto whom does he surrender? Narasimha Swami, sitting in Vaikuntha? No. Lihare Vegavati Tatashrayantvam. So you who dwell on the banks of the Vegavati, because this is a very accessible place, unlike Vaikuntha. This is a place that Narasimha chose and came and stayed just for his devotees. Now, very last verse, which is the Phalashruti verse. So Itham Stuta Sakradishta Ihastibhir Esha Padyaihi Sri Venkatesha Rachitais Tridashendra Vandyaha Durdanta Ghora Duritad Viradendra Bhedi Kāmāsikā Naraharir Vitanotu Kāmāna. May this man lion from Kāmāsikā, he who tears apart excellent elephants that are dreadful, untamable sins, the one who is worshipped by divine chiefs, being thus praised but once here by the 8 verses composed by Sri Venkatesha, cause our desires to be fulfilled. Now, this is a signature verse. The poet gives his name. His name is Venkatanatha. Here, he gives a synonym, Venkatesha. And there's an indirect Phalashruti. He doesn't say if you recite this, you will get this. Rather, he puts in touch God and devotee here, and then just hopes that their desires are fulfilled. I'll come back to the desires in a minute. So this Narasimha is actually a Durdanta Ghora Durita Viradendra Bheti. So he's the lion who tears apart excellent elephants that are dreadful, untamable sins. So Narasimha is the lion on the one hand who tore apart Hiranyakashipu, and actually on the other hand, the sins, our karma. So Hiranyakashipu was nothing but a personification of our terrifying karma, our terrifying sins. And it's so terrifying that we need Narasimha to save us from our own deeds, actually. And may this Narasimha, says Swami Desikan, fulfill our desires. What desires I've already mentioned, the good desires that will help us do good things, jnana, bhakti, vairagya. But it's very likely, just because he's mentioned right now, the removing the destruction of the sins, probably that's the best boon that this Kāmāsikā Narasimha could give us, get rid us of our karma, of our sins. And how many times do we need to recite the stotra to get this fruit? Because usually the potency of a mantra or a stotra is said to also depend upon the number of times it is recited and the exact time when it is recited. You probably all know the Mahalakshmi-ashtakam, Namostute Mahamaye Sri Pithe Surapujite, that one. How many times should it be recited so that it brings the desired fruit? Trikalam ya pathe nityam, it says. It says 3 times a day, presumably during the 2 twilights, morning, noon, and at night. And nityam, always, probably in order to sustain the achieved results. It probably means that if you stop reciting it, its results will wear off. What about this stotra, Kāmāsikāṣṭakam? Sakrit, he says. You have to recite it just once. No need for repeating, ever. At what time? It doesn't say it. It does not matter. It's very much like Sharanagati in Sri Vaishnavism. You do it once. That's it. You can do it anytime. Anybody can do it. Very similarly, here you are taking refuge in Kāmāsikā Nṛsiṃha is exactly the same as seeking surrender in Bhagavan, because obviously Narasimha Swami is Bhagavan. He grants you what is best for you. Now let me conclude. The firm belief, even among the people, the lay people, is that Nale in Badillai Narasimha Nidattil. There's no tomorrow for Narasimha. It means when you call him, he appears right now to protect us. He won't tarry. Just a second, please. I'll stop sharing for a minute. He won't tarry. So I really hope that he does not tarry anymore and comes and save us from this difficult time that we all as human beings have been going through for a whole year now, more than a year. So let's hope that he turns up and protect us. So I hope that you have all enjoyed listening to Swami Desikan's words about this Kāmāsikā Nṛsiṃha. And I hope that you will visit Kāmāsikā Nṛsiṃha in Tiruvallur if you haven't already done it, and enjoy his beauty directly. Thank you so much for your patience. I know that this has been a very long talk. So thanks so much for your patient listening, and thanks once again, Swamiji, for giving me this opportunity.